welcome everyone. If you don't know who I am, my name is John Ryan. I'm a technical solution specialist. I'm the host for this room, so I work at Network Center. And I'll be introducing my colleague, who is also a technical solution specialist, Mr. David Groth. David is a TSS and a modern workplace consultant. David has over 25 years in IT, telecom, and collaboration. He's also the author of the original Network Plus exam book, if you guys, some of you have probably read that or studied it, as well as several other IT certification study guides. He is currently the Microsoft Teams champion and the modern workplace consultant for Network Center. He is actually presenting remotely from Costa Mesa, California. So we had a blustery 50 degrees, I think. But anyway, so welcome, Mr. David Groth.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from California. If in case anyone is thinking that the weather is awesome and that you're missing anything out here, it's 47 degrees and raining right now. So you're not really missing anything. So as John said, I'm a technical solution specialist and modern work consultant, and Teams is my passion. And specifically, the entire modern work platform, which includes security and the Power Platform, and but Teams specifically, because the product it's incredible what it can do and what it can do for a company. And in addition to that, part of that passion includes helping transform companies into to leverage that technologies to make their businesses more efficient. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering today. Today we're going to talk about first of all, what is modern work, and how does it apply to our company, to companies, and why organizations are adopting Microsoft Teams for that. Then we're going to talk about really the key of this is what does it take to implement Teams, and then also leveraging Teams and the Microsoft 365 features. So let's start off with a definition of what is modern work. Well, if we're going to use the colloquial definition, it's a term to define organizations who recognize digital collaboration, the technologies and tools as a way of the future. Now, in the traditional sense, work is, people think of, hey, I get up in the morning, I have my breakfast, and I get in my car and I go to work. These days, in the colloquial definition, going to work has any number of means. Some people would get up, they'll have their breakfast in front of their computer, and they'll literally be working, and it's not an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5 type position. We actually are using technology and collaboration and these tools to help shape the way we do our work. And then we understand that these tools are the enablers of this productivity and efficiency. So it's not just a technology, but it's truly a philosophy. How can we do our quote unquote work in the most efficient way, not only for the company, but also for the people that are doing the work? Because they've found that people aren't always the most efficient from 9 to 5. Different people are more efficient in the mornings and in the evenings and just all throughout the day. However, the key in a modern work philosophy is let's use the technology to allow people to do work when it works for them, and so that we can actually use that technology to get the work done, to be sure, but also to track it and to find out, okay, is the work getting done? Are people working together? Because if they can't work together, something gets lost there. You get silos of work, and we don't want that. So it's a desire then to create a positive, collaborative, as I mentioned, flexible culture, and then suited to the modern worker, and an understanding that this technology and tools are enablers of this productivity and efficiency. Before the pandemic, companies were hesitant to implement a remote work philosophy for anyone except those that absolutely needed it. We had a VPN set up to enable companies to take laptops offsite and connect back into their company to use the internal systems to do work, but only just. During and after the pandemic, the fundamental philosophy shift was like, oh, hey, we can now, everybody's got to work from home, or during rather, everybody's got to work from home. We can't have any socialization in person. So why don't let's change our mindset. Let's change our philosophy to be, let's work, collaboratively, distantly. And what I'm doing right now is a great example. I'm giving a presentation from 1,000 miles away using all the technology and tools that I have at my disposal. And in theory, just as something to think about, in theory, all of us that are in this room could be having a collaborative work session where not only could we all be on a one-to-one call or a one-to-many call, but we could share, say, an Excel spreadsheet and all be working on it, or a Word doc, or something to that effect. So, but specifically today, and as I mentioned, specifically today, we're talking about the Microsoft modern workplace. And that's a modern work philosophy or modern work setup that operates using the suite of Microsoft products and the Microsoft 365 cloud suite, and those that harness the power of the cloud. So this suite of applications includes a lot of moving parts, and you don't have to implement all of them to have a modern work philosophy. As a matter of fact, you only have to have a couple of specific features. Starting on the left-hand side, you have Microsoft 365. And Microsoft 365 and that also includes, to a degree, the Office 365 piece. And that's the suite of programs themselves. And that's what they call the Active Directory piece. That is your authentication and all of that to the cloud. Then you have Exchange, that's your email. We'll skip over the next one. You have Enterprise Mobility and Security. That's where you can track your mobile devices. We have Teams, Power Automate, Power BI, which we'll talk about in a minute. SharePoint, those of you with Microsoft Prem servers should be no strangers to SharePoint. SharePoint has now become something that is less important, still important, but less important in a cloud environment. You'd think it would be more important, but Teams has actually superseded SharePoint in an architecture standpoint. SharePoint can still be used as it always has, but from a work perspective, the philosophy has changed, at least within Microsoft, to be more Teams-centric, not SharePoint-centric. Behind it all, we have Azure, and the Azure infrastructure is huge. There is a lot of moving parts in Azure. I was looking at the suite of applications that you can get through Azure, and it is amazing. Mike Pagan is giving two breakout sessions today. If you haven't had a chance to speak with Mike or talk with Mike about Azure, I highly recommend that you do that. He is a wealth of knowledge on that. And then finally, there's a part that we kind of glossed over just briefly, and that was the business voice aspect. And business voice is an add-on to all of the 365 piece, where you can effectively turn your 365 into a phone system and replace I want to say historical, that's not quite the right word, your traditional PBX, and just have everything integrated in one suite, all cloud-based, available from anywhere. Before this presentation, I was actually communicating with John, and I was calling via Microsoft Teams calling specifically. So, and I could turn that audio call into a video call. So very cool product, and a lot of people are adopting it just immediately as soon as they have it, because it is simple and relatively inexpensive from the standpoint of comparing it to a traditional PBX. Okay, moving on. Why are companies adopting Teams? You'd think, okay, well, I understand the fundamentals of it, but why are companies adopting it? Well, I just want to give you some stats. Teams adoption by user count has doubled each year for the past 3 years, doubled. And if you look at that, I mean, graphs are all fun and everything, but I've been working with it for at least the last 4 years, and it has been insane. Like, everybody talks about it, but here's the thing. It starts out very, innocently, like, hey, I've got this Teams program on my desktop. Let me play with it. And oh, hey, I can chat my coworkers. Hey, let's use chat. And then it starts growing. And chat, if you think about it at its fundamental level, the two most basic collaboration pieces of any product are the telephone and then to some degree chat. And if you start in that area, it just blossoms from there. And now the technology has just vastly developed into a whole ecosystem that allows collaboration. And because of that, 91 of the top Fortune 100 use MS Teams. And I don't just mean use it; I mean have implemented it and make it part of their just daily life. I have a friend who I happen to be out here visiting who works for NBC, and they work for the largest market in the country. And apparently the NBC and Universal, their parent company, have implemented Teams organization wide, and they use it for everything. So, and this is the cool function. And one of the things I love, but it can be frustrating at times, I will admit, at least 10 features are introduced every quarter for free. So if you have Microsoft Teams and you get into that system, to either 10 new features or usually an addition to an existing feature. I'll give you an example. At one point, you didn't have the ability to export, approvals, and we'll show you what that is in a little bit. They they're constantly listening to the user and professional community, and people just say, hey, I want this function, and this would be really nice, or, we really have a need for function X. Give it time. It's kind of like the old saying up here is, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. Well, if you don't like a function of Teams, wait a quarter or wait a couple quarters. They now have, things like automatic translation, video translation, automatic transcription, recording of every meeting. It's insane how many features have introduced just in the last year. I am constantly reading and watching and training about the different functions on just one product, just Teams. That's not to say anything about all of the other products in the modern work ecosystem. Okay, but why? Why should I? All of you represent, individual companies. Why should I do it? Why should you implement it? Well, in one sentence, all communications and collaborations can be done in one cloud-based platform, and it is truly cross-platform. When I say you can do your work in Teams, there's a story. Many of you, some of you, maybe not all of you, I can't look at the entire crowd, but many of you were here last year. The night before Envision, I had done all my presentation, I was getting ready, and everything was working fine. Closed down my laptop, put it in the green room, and I went to the social. Come back after the social, my laptop, my iPad, gone. I was all set to do my presentation from my phone. But because it was in Teams and 365, all my data was in the cloud. Everything was right there, and I had all my data ready to go. Same with my chats, my phone calls, my meetings. I've done meetings from any number of places. I just would pull off the road and have my meeting and go to town. Or I've been in a car with someone else driving and had meetings that way. I've also changed documents from my phone or hopped onto somebody's web browser securely, I might add, with MFA, and been able to collaborate on a document with somebody using Teams. So I can do it from anywhere using any platform, and that's very powerful. And all functions, with a few exceptions, are available across all those platforms. I can't stress that enough. So Teams is the very definition of a modern work application because of all of the functions I mentioned. Another reason why you should is that you can reduce multiple spend on applications that can be done with a single program. I'll give you an example. So some of the things you might spend on a chat program. You might spend on a different collaboration program, i.e. WebEx or Zoom, or another third-party one from a specific vendor. You also might have a spend on an internal phone system. That, and people are like, I bought it, it works, I don't need to change it. Well, just think about this. They do need moves, adds, and changes. You do need to add a phone, change a phone, what have you. Plus, a lot of those, you can't have modern work with like an old phone system that has line 1, line 2, line 3. We call those key systems. Also, a lot of the functions of automatic transcription and things like that are not available through older phone systems. Plus, to lift and replace those older phone systems, it's very expensive. We're talking on the orders of tens of thousands of dollars, where, the modern work Teams phone is literally a few extra dollars per month to your existing licensing costs. And you've got a full-fledged phone system with auto attendance, queues, everything. So, and then also there's literally dozens of programs that come with most of the team licenses, and we'll get into that in a little while. Then you can also because of that, you can reduce your application switching by doing most of your work, or a good chunk of your work, in a single application. Now, I'm not to say that Teams is going to replace your ERP system or your CRM. It's because that's not what it's designed for. However, if you think about it, a lot of what we call knowledge workers, and knowledge workers would be the people that are going to work in, Word and Excel, and everyone that works as a knowledge worker is going to have usually a third system that is your ERP, your CRM, that does that tracking of that data. But they're also going to be working in communications and collaborations on everything else. Your Word documents, your Excel, your reporting, talking with other people, being able to communicate with them. And to do that from a cloud-based perspective, you could have 20 different programs, or you could have one. And Teams really is that one program. So what does it take to implement Teams? Here's the biggest one. In a word, a plan. So this plan, needs to include several things. First of all, it needs to include the licensing. Now, if you have or are going to have a 365 plan, a Microsoft 365 or Office 365, you need to check to see if your plan includes Teams. Most of them do. There are a few that do not, specifically the Microsoft apps for business, and what's the other one? Just like Exchange only. The nice thing is, with Teams Essentials, there is a license that is literally just Teams. It's Teams Essentials, it's called. But most of your other ones, which is the ones people have the most often, are Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium, and then your E1s, E3s, F1s, F3s, all of that whole litany of licensing. Most, if not all of those, include Teams in one form or another, whether it be web and mobile only or the full client. You're also going to need to have a plan that includes a team and channel design. We'll talk briefly in a little bit about what that means, but that is how you lay out your collaboration and how you're going to work with it. You'll also need to talk about governance and compliance. And this is a topic that has become somewhat more popular as of late, especially as people move to the cloud. Because right now, when your data is on-prem, when your data is in your company, you do have to do governance and compliance, but the only channels you have to manage are primarily email and thumb drives, and where does your data, how does your data travel, how can you see it, right? How does it, can it travel outside of the company? Like you have, and then with compliance, things like HIPAA, what's another one? GDPR, There's several other compliance organizations, and if you're in one of those, most, if not all, companies have to comply with something when they do business, and it could be SOC, it could be there's any number, and that data you need to be able to track it and be able to manage it in order to govern it and to be in compliance. The great thing about Teams is if your data is in the cloud and your data is accessed and managed through Teams, Microsoft has an entire compliance center that allows you to track and tag and manage it to the point where if somebody has a file that contains a social security number or PII, personally identifiable information, a manager could get tagged when somebody tries to email it outside of the company and actually will prevent it from being emailed outside of the company, for example, or tried to be copied to any number of pieces of information, or if you chatted outside of the company, same deal. Then security, it's kind of along the same lines. We want to make sure that whatever communications we're doing are done in a secure manner. Teams has end-to-end encryption, so that usually isn't a problem. But we want to make sure that when people are communicating within the company and they're collaborating within the company, just like the basic definition of security, we want to make sure that the people that have only have access to the stuff they need to, and that's it, right? But they can get access to what they need to as well, both internally and externally. External to the company, that is. Then finally, network design. Your plan should take that into account. Even though we're talking about a cloud-based system, when people are in the office, whether that be at home or in an actual office building, does the network handle the quality that needs to be there? And it isn't a lot. But Microsoft does have a little tester that can you can just run quick and see, hey, is your network sufficient to handle it? I can say that I can run it over my cell phone, and I mean video meetings, collaboration, all of that. So, and I have not personally, did I try? I'm trying to remember the slowest connection I ever tried. I'm trying to remember if it was DSL and how fast. I was able to get video meetings to work, but it had to buffer a little bit. But that was pretty slow DSL. I mean, obviously cell phones these days have significant downloads, especially with 5G. So let's go ahead and get right into the meat of it. Let's go through some of these features. And honestly, some of this is my favorite part. Let's go through a few of the features that we have with Microsoft Teams. So this is Microsoft Teams. This is the Windows client. Now I want to show you real brief. I'm doing the standard Microsoft demo where we have Contoso as the company and Megan Bowen as a user. But let me just flip over quick and let me show you the web browser client. You notice it looks almost identical. The only major difference is that we have at the top here, we have a browser bar, okay? And I'm logged in as Alan here at the top. But I'm just going to go through here. And this is what we would use in the morning. I would log into Teams and say, okay, what do I have to do today? Let me talk to so-and-so. Implementing of Teams, on average, reduces a company's reliance on email by 50%. Because you can get that instant communication. When you use text messaging, do you find yourself, think about it, do you find yourself using email more or less? By and large, most people find they're using email less when they use text messaging. The same thing applies with Teams. If you can message somebody something, you can get that instant answer or relatively instant. They can reply back at their leisure. And because the app goes on your phone, it's secure and encrypted and searchable. That's the key. Text messages, depending on the platform, can be searchable, but can it be a little cumbersome? Whereas in here, I can search, say, for example, I'm on a project, I can search Teams wide to look for information on that project. And it will pull up every document, every discussion. every chat I've ever had about that project. So very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick chat here. Now, first of all, I can chat internally. I'm going to go ahead and chat with Alan. And if you notice, I can see who's online with this little green check mark, and I can see that Alan is logged in. Now, I logged in as Alan with the web browser. So I'm going to go say, "Hi, Alan. Have a good weekend." And this is just casual chat. Now, I want you to notice something. If you look at the bottom here, how many icons there are. These all have a very specific purpose. These are all collaboration applications, actually. And some of them are just cutesy little things, but a lot of these have a specific collaboration function. So I'm going to go ahead and send that. And when I do, I'm actually, it popped up on my other screen. I apologize. But I actually got a notification. And see here, I got my chat window. I now popped over to my web browser and I see Alan, and it says, here, see, I have a little darkened icon. Hey, Alan, have a good weekend. Yep. Went fishing. You. And same thing. I get the notification as well. And back and forth and back and forth. I do want to show you just real quickly that this is just chat, so we can discuss back and forth. We have the standard, formatting, delivery options. One thing about delivery options, I'm just going to say, with email, you don't have this option. The recipient is notified every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. So you ever send an email that has that little, flag urgent? Well, that urgent is great, but it just sits in the inbox. It doesn't do anything. Chat is living. So if you say urgent, it's going to say, hey, 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 and keep bugging you for 2 minutes, for 20 minutes. It doesn't do it forever, but it will bug you until you answer that chat. I can attach files, pay particular attention to this one. I can actually do loop. Loop is a new function that was introduced where I can actually work together with Alan and collaborate with him on, say, a bulleted list of items. And this loop list will follow during this chat if I'm on my, again, mobile phone, web browser, wherever, and I can literally just add items to this bulleted list. And then this piece can be exported into a published document. But it's quick and simple. Rather than opening up a whole new Word document, whole new spreadsheet, I can literally just type something right here in the chat. Real simple. Then we have GIFs, and we all know what GIFs are. We've all done GIFs before. Stickers. Stickers are, we have Clippy. Anybody remember Clippy? Clippy was my pal. Then we have memes. We can make memes. So these are the things. Now, I want to make one point here. The memes and the GIFs, a lot of people go, why do we have memes and GIFs in Teams? Think about it. The part that makes collaboration and modern work is the part that makes it personal, where you can interact with your clients and connect with them on a personal level and, be funny with them, be interactive with them, not just all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Same thing with Teams. If you can't play a little bit and be funny in Teams, it loses, it falls flat. So also we have scheduling a meeting. We can click one-click meeting schedule. I want to schedule, I clicked and opened another window. One-click meeting scheduling with Alan. I can pick a time and it will find an available meeting time. I can send an approval. This is a very powerful function. Let's say I want to ask Alan for approval for something. I can send a basic approval request like approve my vacation. PTO request, right? Priority, it's important. And then I can add an attachment. Where's approvers? Oh, wrong person. Alan. Okay. I put the names, and then I can send it. I sent the approval. And now if I go over to Alan's, Alan says he's requesting. Now it does take a minute for approvals. Those approvals, because it's a workflow, doesn't go through automatically, but it's fairly quick. Just give it a minute. There it is, requested. Now right here in the chat, I can approve, reject, or view details, add comments, go have fun. Approval, approve. And that's it. It's been approved. So that simple process, by doing approvals that way, you have literally taken out a whole workflow and a whole setup where you have a piece of paper, fill out this, and it's Alan is requesting, Megan is approving, here's the details, and they could just put the details right in the request in a little note form. And yes, there is other ways to putting in actual fields. And yes, you can export it to your HR system. That does work. But this workflow is a great example of how teams could do simple things very well and take a lot of the clutter out of your workday. Okay, so that's an example of the basic functionality of chat. One other little thing that's kind of cool. I'm going to go here and I'm going to actually chat. Alan is going to chat with somebody external to Contoso. Let's say we have a vendor, i.e. Network Center, and I need to talk to somebody in Network Center, and I happen to call up John. And John, and I just happen to know that his email address is John. I'm gonna dox you here, John. And when I do that, I can search John internally. That's what this first one means. But this second one says search John externally. If I do that, did I spell it right? Oh, that's my problem. So I didn't find John external because it was .com. John's actually in debtcenter.net. And you see here, it found John because John is on Teams in an external organization. And yes, you can turn this function off so that you can block external requests. So in case anybody was wanting, but you notice it does show that John is available. I'm going to go ahead and say, hi, John, how are you? And I'm chatting with John directly. And John, if you'd be so kind as to respond, I'll let you go ahead and do that. And I can see, if you notice, he's in a whole nother company, and I can see that he's typing right now. There he is. Can you give me a quote for 50 licenses of business standard doing MS Teams this year? So there, I just reached out to John, said, hey, can you do this? And it's an interruption, and John might have a question for me, but we can have a tete-a-tete back and forth without having to have a whole email chain. And if you've ever had email chains where you're like, where did we talk about that? What was the thing? Here, you can see the email or the message chain right in here. One other thing I'd like you to notice. Do you notice at the bottom here? I only have 5 options with my external people, and that's formatting, urgent, emojis, GIFs, and stickers. I don't have an attach option. Okay. If you need to attach something, use email. The idea being, from a security standpoint, you don't want to attach your sensitive documents with PII in them and so on. Okay. We got, thank you. Thank you, John. I'll let you get back to it. Oh, one other thing. If I wanted to turn this into a phone call quick, I don't know if I'll get audio, but I'm going to go ahead and just hit a video call here. I'm going to block it. I'm just continue without audio video. And there I can see John. There he is. Hi, John. So now we're having a conversation. And at the same time, we can have it. You see this? You can see it okay? All right, I'm going to hang up. Okay. So that is doing a simple Teams chat. Now, I'm not going to go through a full training here, but I do want to go over the fundamental functions here. We do have channels where teams and channels are literally, like, you think about it like your natural groups in your company. You have teams of people that do the work. And we have a SOC team, we have an HR leadership team, we have the marketing team. And then within those, we have channels of communication. And a channel of communication, everyone has a general, which is just your general discussions and your general work. But then we might have, like, the HR leadership team might have an event or a set of events that happen on a regular basis. And if that's the case, we might have a whole separate channel to keep those files, applications, and discussions and communications separate from the general stuff. That's what a team and a channel and how they differ. Okay. Now, one other thing that's kind of cool here is because we separate out our teams and channels, we actually can put our files in there as well. And that's where the power comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and, as Alan, in the HR leadership team, I have a document called How to Be a Leader. And it's a Word document, but I'm working on it with Megan. So I'm going to stay in here and I'm going to be working on it. I'll be like, hey, Megan, let's go ahead and, where is it here? So we're going to, this is some cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and scooch over here into Megan. See, if you look up here, I'm in as Megan. I'm going to go ahead and go, I'm a member of the HR leadership team in general. I'm going to go into that same file. I can be in it at the same time as Alan. And I can also see that when I start editing it, I can see, notice the little icon, Alan DeYoung has this document open, and I can see where he's at in the document. Right? And if I go back to Alan, I can see that there's where Megan is at. You can do this with dozens of people and everyone can collaborate. This is, again, the true power of Teams. Multi-user document collaboration. And you're going, yeah, Google has that same, Google Docs has had that for quite a while. But I can do the same set of items, and it has a lot more additional functions like catch up. For example, if I close this and then, if Alan closed it and Megan continued to make changes, and then Alan opened it again and says, oh, well, I need to find out what was going on while I was gone, so to speak, because this is the document I was working on. I can also share this document with somebody else in the organization just by copying the link and sharing it to them. And there's an option there for saying permissions as well. I won't go through it all, but you can share this document. They can add their 2 cents. Okay, moving on. I know we're getting close to our time here, so I really could talk all day on these functions. We do have, as I was mentioning, we do have the ability to do phone calls, and this is right here in Teams, my phone calls. I have a work number, a phone number that's been assigned to me. I could actually I made a phone call to John just a minute ago, but John could actually call me on my actual phone number and it would ring here in my web browser, no less. Okay, so I don't have to, and in addition, one of the other functions that's just used for the most part is when you have your cell phone and you want to make calls, but not give out your cell phone number. This is a great application for this. All right. So now one other piece, there are a lot of extensible applications. I'm going to go back to Megan here for a moment. Teams has hundreds of applications available to it. It has things like the approvals app, which we just were looking at here a moment ago. And we have the integration, of course, with DocuSign, where these items can be DocuSigned. We have from Microsoft, we have Viva Insights, where Viva Insight is, I use it all the time, and it allows me to automatically block out focus time. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm very busy, and if I don't block out time for my own work, people will just keep taking it and taking it and taking it with meetings and calls and what have you. So I block out focus time, and this does it for me automatically. I say I want 3 hours a day, I want 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, or I want so many hours a week. It'll do that. Another thing that's involved is Viva Engage. This is like, so if you've ever seen the Microsoft product Yammer, it's basically a social media platform that they've built that's internal to your company. Viva Engage is the same kind of thing where you can have an internal company social media platform. Very cool little product, and I'm happy to talk to you about it more. Unfortunately, I'm not there, but we could have a Teams call at some point. Other applications that you've got, shifts, allows you to plan out shifts, work shifts. I'm sure there's, many of you there, or a few of you there have work shifts where I need to schedule shifts for people, and then they need to trade shifts. Like, I want to work this shift, I want to work this shift, and I have this shift, but could we trade shifts? All of that with that app could be handled within Microsoft Teams. Project management. You can actually assign tasks to people, have them done. Now, it is not a full-on project management suite. You can do some things like Gantt charting and what have you, but it is not full-on dependency-based and risk management and other things. But for task management, where you can do a basic project using assigning tasks, it's wonderful for that. Of course, you can embed wikis. You can do Power Automate. Power Automate. By the way, Jason Mesner is giving a presentation on Power Apps and Power Automate, and I believe it's at 1 p.m. today. So I highly recommend that you check it out. So those are I literally could talk. And then there's another one called Bookings. If you're not using that one already and you want people to book time from the outside on your calendar and set up a Teams meeting without your intervention, it will literally securely look at your calendar and say, I want to set up a sales meeting. People will say, I'm interested in your product. What time can we meet? Rather than sending that email, you just have a link in your, signature. Automatically, it says, find time on my calendar. They click it. It comes up with Microsoft Bookings, and you say, you categorize your appointments. I want a sales meeting. I want a demo, whatever, and it will automatically block out time on your calendar for that, and they can book those demos. It's a very cool product. I suggest you look into it. We do not have time for that today, but it is a very cool product. Okay, so where do we go from here? That's really the big question. So I want to say, first of all, it's the implementation. This is not a turn it on program. You don't just, you can install it, run it. People will, and chances are you already have it installed. But to truly get all the features that we talked about and I showed you, you don't want to just click and go, because what you end up happening is you get the Wild West. The Wild West being, I've got 27 sales teams, and they're not all the same, and there's half of the sales group is in one and half of the sales group is in another, and some of the documents are over here and some of the documents over here, which is really the antithesis of collaboration. Okay, so as I said earlier, it takes planning and thought and design. So some of that. Also, you need to look at all the other facets. Another piece is you've got to build a team. And the team is going to involve champions, people that really like the product, more to the point, love the product, and want to go fully into it and know all the features. And they're going to people that within each team are going to be the ones that goes, let's use Teams for that. The phrase that I've heard a lot around people that are champions is, hey, Teams me that, or Teams me. And that just means chat me the question or the information that I needed. Surprisingly, that little phrase or that little piece of information will greatly improve communication and collaboration. It's usually the spark that lights the fire. Another one, you want to define the goals for the implementation, because there's so much here, as you've already seen, there's so much here. Where do we want to start? What do we want to really do in the implementation? Most people, you want to be realistic about the goals. You want to say, okay, I want to get chat, I want to get collaboration and communication going. Great. And then let's look at implementing the true teams and channels functions later, or second step. Third step, let's look at going into calling or document management and some of these other things. Great. But having the goals is probably one of the most important parts. And that goes on to the prioritization of those feature sets, because there's literally hundreds of features. And being able to prioritize that is definitely a key piece of this. So once you've got those ideas, you're going to want to build the deployment instance. And first and foremost, that goes back to having that licensing. You want to make sure that your 365 instance is in place and running first. First and foremost, that has to be set up. That's prerequisite to all of this. As long as your email is in 365, and it can be hybrid, on-prem Exchange as well as cloud Exchange, but your cloud Exchange has to be the primary one. Then you can build your deployment instance where you've designed your rules, your naming conventions, how your security is going to be set up. Then there are ways where people can just add these third-party apps that I was showing you. Keep them to a minimum. Don't let everyone install third-party apps and integrations to different, websites and whatever, because that is possible, but it is also a security thing that you can turn off. Then once you've got that, go ahead and pilot a launch. Say one team, one group. Say just this, I'm going to pick sales, so the sales department, and see how it works. Give it 30, 60, 90 days, depending on how large the group is. Then from there, pick out an onboarding plan to onboard the rest of the group and bring it, maybe say 3 departments, because you can then, and then from there, that's where you have the full rollout. And everyone is going to be different. There's really no solid, one size fits all for teams, but this is a general guideline, right? A real general guideline. Microsoft has a really good resource called adoption.microsoft.com. They have something called a flip book, and I recommend that everyone take a look at it, because it goes through that overall process that I talked about and who should be involved, and like some of the people that could be involved for champions, and the rollout plan and the pilot plan, and then how to say, where are we at in the process? So it gives so what'll happen, generally speaking, is you'll get, when you first say, we're going to do teams, you go through the process of planning and designing, and then you have the rollout. And what'll happen is you'll have an adoption, and you'll have a fight where those people that don't like to implement new technologies. And then you'll have a gradual acceptance, because you'll have that 2 groups of people that are like, I want the latest and greatest, and I'm fine with the way things are. And eventually those people will come on board and go, wow, you mean I can do X and it's 10 times easier? Because they're usually brought on board with things that make their lives easier. They take a while, but if they're brought on board with more training, that usually brings it together. So I know we're running we ran a few minutes over, but what I wanted to do now is take any questions from, take any questions from the group, and see if you guys all had any questions for me.
No hands are going up.
No
So
hands are
I
going
think
up.
you're good to go.
Good to go. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say two things that please feel free. I mean, I can hear you just fine. So if it's a matter of the two-way communication, I can definitely hear everyone. Um, if you feel the need, you have any questions after this, some of you know me, some of you don't. Feel free to email me. My email is david.groth, Groth, at netcenter.net. And that also happens to be my Teams address. So if you'd like to Teams me, go ahead and do that as well. I'm a big proponent of having people Teams me. And yes, it's open so people can Teams me. So, are there any other questions?
Nope, good to go.
All right. Well, everyone, I do appreciate you. Thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Envision 2022. Good luck with the rest of your day. And yeah, thanks for coming, everyone.